In the US, there are 3 vaccines currently in phase 3 trials, in these large controlled randomized trials of several thousand individuals. In fact, these trials include 30,000 individuals each. And these are done with some newer technologies that haven't been in approved vaccines previously. Some are RNA-based vaccines where we're using basically encoding for the genes that then make the protein of the virus, and then our body responds to that. One of them is also including the genes of a particular gene of COVID's in a adenovirus, which is a different kind of virus, a benign kind of virus. So those are in these large trials already, having gone through phase 1 and 2. Globally, there are probably at least around 200 COVID vaccine candidates. Many of them haven't yet been in humans, but quite a number are in those earlier phase studies as well throughout the world. On the question of timing, there's been a tremendous emphasis and investment in moving these trials along quickly. And this has been somewhat controversial, but in fact, the phase 1 and 2 trials were done, and FDA reviewed the data for those before going into these large phase 3 trials. What's been happening is that the whole process has been accelerated, and also, even though we don't yet know if these vaccines work, both non-governmental organizations funding global vaccine development, including one we know about called CEPI, and then Operation Warp Speed, the US government's vaccine development effort, those are already funding manufacturing of many of these vaccines before that we even know if they work. So this is smart because we're facing a bad pandemic and we want to be prepared if we have a safe, effective vaccine to be able to begin deploying it both in this country and globally. So things are being moved along rather quickly. These trials have already, 2 of the 3 have already enrolled at least half or more of the patients. And what happens now is we basically have to wait for the data to come in. Also, I should mention that these vaccines so far are all ones that require 2 doses, typically 3 to 4 weeks. This is after the first dose, a second dose. So we have everybody getting entered in the trials, which mostly took place in the last month or so. Some is still ongoing and will take place in the next month. Then in a month, getting a second dose, and then waiting after that second dose to see whether cases of COVID occur. Okay. Now, because these trials are being done in places where there's lots of COVID, unfortunately, still going on and lots of cases, for a very effective vaccine, you could potentially see effects of that vaccine in a relatively short time period. The way these trials are monitored is there's an independent board called the Data Safety and Monitoring Board that at different time points, usually after a certain number of patients have been accrued or events occur, in this case probably around the infection events, once enough of those have occurred that you believe you might be able to see a difference between the vaccinated and the control group, they, at predetermined times, will look at the data and see, is there a difference in the 2 groups? They don't know at that point which group is which, but they just have Group A and Group B, and is there a difference between these 2 groups in the number of events? If that difference is very large and very significant, they can choose to do what we call unblind the study then, and look and see, maybe there were 100 infections in the non-vaccinated group and 20 in the vaccinated group. So maybe there's a very dramatic effect of vaccine. That's certainly the hope. They also monitor at the same time for safety events in both groups. And is there a difference in that suggests there may be a safety problem for a vaccine? So, and if they see that, they can actually stop a clinical trial at any point. So there are these times called interim analyses that could take place in the next couple of months and could lead to them seeing a big difference and then potentially unblinding and stopping a trial. And there's a lot of controversy about this because everybody is concerned that because vaccines are given to healthy people, we want to be sure they are safe and effective before they're used.